Hey, what's up everybody? Fuller here. Thanks so much for checking out the channel, and I've been appreciating all the comments and all of the new subscribers that we have, and just a lot of cool things happening on the channel. I haven't released a video for a few weeks, been busy catching up with the new job over at Zapper. I'm the audio designer over there, and been kind of getting into the groove there and working on some really cool projects. Can't say much about it, but we are deep in Metasounds and it's been a blast. So I want to pick up today's video. I want to show you how to make a morphing fire sound, and I've seen a lot of comments on some of the ideas of crossfading Metasound sources and stuff like that. So in this project we're going to build this right here. Check this out. So we've got a little fire pit here, and then when your character walks over here we hear fire, and then when we come over here we're going to see some sparks. We're going to see the fire morph into the sparks, and listen to what the Metasound does. So the Metasound kind of crossfades into this kind of magical sound. We'll go back to the fire, and then when we jump on into the fire, it stops it and fades it out. So pretty simple concept, but inside this Metasound we're doing some really important things, and also want to kind of really dive into the blueprint side of this, because Metasounds is a small part of the power of the Unreal Engine. Blueprinting is where the magic really happens, okay? So it's like the Metasounds is the car and the blueprint is the driver. And so that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to show you just real quick. So what I have built, we're going to dive right in here. We're not going to waste any time. We are going to dive right in here and show you what I did. I built a blueprint right here called BP Fire Morph. And what I did is I put inside this actor, I put a spark particle system, and I put a fire particle system. Now, all of these systems are in the starter content, okay, of the third person. If you open your Unreal Engine and you just create a new project from the starter kit, third person project, you'll have these assets. So what I did here is we have the the cascade particle systems here, not active, okay? And then I put 3 collision boxes. I got one here for the fire, one here for the sparks, and one here for the stop control. Now, and then I just put some text so we could see it inside the when you're playing in the editor. So then over here on the event graph, here's what I got going on. So when let's go over here to the viewport. This fire box right here, box L, because it's on the left. When you overlap box L, when your character walks over box L, we activate the fire particle system, okay? And then we deactivate the spark, because I wanted it one deactivates and one activates, okay? And then same thing, when you overlap the box on the right, it will activate the spark and then deactivate the fire. And so it's really important to kind of start playing around building your own blueprints so that you can get used to how the engine works. Now, what we're doing with the Metasound is when we overlap the fire box, it spawns that particle system, and then it sends this execute parameter to our Metasound. So let's look at our Metasound, because that's what this video is about. You can see here, and then, oh yeah, over here on the stop overlap, when you go through the stop collision box, it fades out the Metasound, and then it deactivates both particle systems depending on which one is on. So that's very basic, but very important to be able to do. Now, let's look at our Metasound. Okay, here's what I've got. I have got, so the Metasound starts playing, okay, right away. And then when I have 2 wave players here set up. I have a wave player playing this fire asset, and I have a wave player playing the sparks asset. Let's listen to that. Here's what the fire sounds like. I'm going to play this input. So now we hear the fire. And then now let me play the sparks input. We have that kind of like more mystical, magical sound. And so this one Metasound is handling both those sounds. Now, how are we handling it? Well, we are crossfading between the two. And that's one of the really cool features of Metasounds that I want to focus on in this video. And this is the idea of the crossfade function. Now, the crossfade function, I have referenced it in a few of my other videos, but the crossfade function can get a little complicated if you don't understand how it works. And so let me just take a few seconds to tell you how the crossfade node works. So when you pull up a crossfade node, let's just look here. Crossfade, type crossfade, and then let's go audio 2. You are basically now, you have a node that is going to crossfade this audio into this audio, and it's going to send it out here. And then the value is where the crossfade is going to happen. Now, look at it like this. If you are crossfading two audio sources, and that's what this is. This is crossfade audio 2. You can also do crossfade audio 3, okay? When you're crossfading two audio sources, the way this works is if your crossfade value is 0, it is 100% on this input. If your crossfade value is 1, which is the maximum, this is a 0 to 1 maximum, it is fully on the input 1. So 0 is sending out only this. 1, pardon me, is sending out only this. And then any combination of that is a mix. So if you put 0.5, it's going to be sending out equal amounts of 1 and 0, and it'll be a blend. Envision this like a panning knob. This is how I look at this, okay? Matter of fact, let me just pull out an input here. Here's a crossfade value set from 0 to 1. This is literally like a panning knob. 0 is 100% in 0, and 1 is 100% 1. So this is how we crossfade wave players. You come over here, you see I have two wave players hooked up to, we'll talk about this in a minute, coming out into the crossfade, and it is literally ping-ponging between the two. Now we're going to go a little deeper here. I'm going to actually show you how to build this from scratch. So I'm talking fast right now just to give you the overview. So don't panic. I'm going to walk you through this in just a second from scratch because this is a powerful concept to get. The crossfade audio 3 works similar, but now we have 3. So what happens here is when you create the input, you have a 0 to 1 still. And so the way this works is you have to set this to 2 because it's almost like an array of 3 sounds. 0 is 100% 0 output. 1, if I take this to 1, which is in the middle, it is 100% 1. And if I take this to 2, it is 100% 2. So if I want to crossfade between 3 audio sources, I need a value of 0 to 2. And anything in between that is a blend. So 0.5 is a blend between 0 and 1. 1.5 is a blend between 1 and 2. Now, I will admit, I love the guys at Epic Games. I love everything about Metasounds. I love everything about the Unreal Engine. But I do think the way this is set up is a little confusing. I think it probably could be set up a little bit better, but it is what it is. And once you understand it and grasp it, you can kind of make sense of it. It took me a while to kind of honestly figure this out. Now, it's one thing to crossfade, but how do we make a smooth crossfade? And this is where the Interp node comes in. This Interp node right here, let me move this over, and I'm going to show you here. Oh yeah, real quick before I forget. You see I have 2 of these nodes, and the reason I have 2 of these nodes is because we're using a stereo Metasound. So in this case, what you have to do is you have to use 2. You need one to crossfade the left channel, and one to crossfade the right channel. Again, it's not ideal and it's a little bit cumbersome, but it's just the way the coding works. So we have to use the tools that we have. So I have, if you'll see here, I'm crossfading between the left channel of wave player 1 and 2, and then I'm playing simultaneously the wave player right channel 1 and 2, but I'm sending, you can see I'm sending it the same value. That way it does it evenly. Now let's talk about the Interp node. Let's come over here, let's disconnect this. Let's move this Interp node over to here. What the Interp node does is it basically changes a value over a period of time. And in this case, right here, you can see interp time. 1 is 1 second. So what this is going to do is whatever this target is, it's going to change this value from whatever it's set on to that target. And so what you have to do is you have to use this node in conjunction with some other nodes. What we're going to do in this case is we're going to use this very powerful node called trigger route. And so what trigger route allows us to do is it allows us to come in here and it allows us to say, hey, let's pull off an input here, set 0, set 1. So it allows us to say, hey, when I set this value, I want you to interp whatever value we're at to that value, okay? When I set this value, I want you to interp whatever value we're at to 1. And so this is beautifully created to work exactly with what we need to do. So we hit play, we hit set, it changes this value to 0 over 1 second of time. Now, if the value's already at 0, it's not going to do anything. So when I go here, it's going to take it and we're going to change whatever value we're at, whatever this value's at, it's going to change it to 1 and flip-flop back and forth. So that's what allows us to morph these sounds together. So that's a quick overview of the Crossfade node with the Interp node and the trigger route node. And now what we're going to do is we are actually going to create this. I don't actually even need these. I don't know why those are there, but we don't even need this. So we're actually going to create this Metasound from scratch, and then we're going to show you how to import it into our FireMorph blueprint and make it all work. So let's start from a blank slate, okay? So we are going to delete all this, okay? And we are going to start. Here's what we're going to do. We need 2 sounds, okay? We need our fire sound and we need our spark sound. We're going to pull up a stereo wave player for the fire, and we're going to pull up a stereo wave player for the spark. So we're going to click on here and we're going to select fire, which is an asset that comes with the starter pack, and then we're going to collect sparks, which is a sound that I made. It sounds like this, mystical, magical. I just wanted to have a really obvious deviation from there. So now here's what we're going to do. We're not going to hook this play up to anything, okay, because we're going to auto activate this Metasound. So it's going to start playing right when the fire spawns. However, you're not going to hear anything. And so the first thing we want to do, now that we've got these 2 wave players, because again, these 2 wave players are going to back and forth between the 2 sounds. So we're going to drag off of play, and we're going to create an input called play, and I'm going to rename this fire. That's what I want to call that, fire. And fire is already taken because I've already created one, so I'm just going to drag that back in. Fire, and then this other one is going to call spark, which we already have, and you can make this just, actually here, let me show you how to do this. So if I delete this, I drag off here, I click add input, and then I'm just going to call this sparks. So now what this does is this creates our inputs that we can feed with the execute trigger just in a few minutes. So I'm going to hit play, I get fire, I get sparks. You don't hear anything yet because our output's not hooked up. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure these sounds are looping, okay? These are both sounds that need to loop. So this is not a one-shot. This is something that loops continually. Now, here's where the magic happens. Let me just go ahead and drag this off. We're going to call this, we're going to create variables for this, okay? We're going to call this one fire left, and we're going to call this one fire right. Now, I like to use all caps and an L and an R to denote my variable outputs. Not how a lot of people do it, but I'm working on this really big project right now, and it makes sense for me, and I like it. And then that way, anytime I look over here to the left, I can tell right away that it's an audio output that I need. So we're going over here. We're going to call this sparks left. And again, all we're doing here is we're making variables to this audio output just so we can put it somewhere else on the graph and keep it clean. You could connect these directly to the nodes, but this will keep it a little bit cleaner. Now what we want to do is we want to come in here and we are going to add a crossfade, 2 crossfade 2s. So we're going to go crossfade, because we're going to work a little bit backwards here. Crossfade 2, and this is going to be for the left side, this is going to be for the right side, and we are going to connect these to the outputs of our Metasound, okay? These outputs here never go away. That is the output of the Metasound. You need that to get it playing out of the audio render. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. Now what we're going to do is we are going to take these 2 variables and we're going to feed them into the crossfade, okay? So we're going to go fire left, sparks left, because this is going to be our left side, right here, output left, okay? And then we are going to go fire right and sparks right, right over here. So we're going to go fire right, sparks right, right over here. Let's align these because I'm anal. And there we go. So now we have the two audios going there. We don't have a crossfade input value yet, so that's what we're going to build next. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use a trigger output route. We're going to route the value. So we're going to type float route, and we're going to use two of these, okay? And what this is going to do is this is eventually going to tell our Interp node what values to flip between. So on play, we're going to set 0. So anytime fire plays, we're going to set this value to 0. And let's add the Interp node, the infamous Interp2 node. And we're going to set this value there. And let's crossfade it over 1 second. And now this value is going to crossfade the left and the right channels so that we will hear a nice, smooth crossfade. Now, let me just show you. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to start fire, and it's going to work. And then when I crossfade to sparks, it's not going to do anything. So we go here. Let's go fire. There we go. We got the fire coming out because it is input source 0. Now, when we trigger spark, we don't hear anything because it's not hooked up to this logic. But when I come here off on play, which basically when I hit play, this is also going to trigger. Frame accurate, that's the beauty of Metasounds. I'm going to set this to 1 because if you remember, the value 1 is going to crossfade into source 1 now, which is sparks. So now when I trigger fire and sparks, going to go back and forth like a beautiful symphony doing exactly what I asked it to do. Here we go. So we're going to hit play. Metasound's running fire. Here we go. Now I'm going to hit sparks. It's going to trigger this value, and it's going to interp from where it's at now, which is 0 to 1. And check this out. I love it when stuff works. I love it when a plan comes together. Let's go back to fire. It's perfect. Now you could set this crossfade longer. Let's set it to 2 seconds. Make it a little smoother. Check this out. Here we go. Now we're going to sparks. Takes a little longer for the fire to fade out. Same thing. Vice versa. Very cool. Actually, let's leave it at 2. I like 2. Okay, so that's it for our Metasound. That is absolutely it. The rest of the stuff we're going to do over here in our fire blueprint. Now, quick thing to know. How do we get the fire blueprint in here? You just simply drag it into the level. You literally take BP Fire Morph and put it wherever you want it. In this case, I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to rotate it. Look at me when I'm talking to you. All right, there we go. Boom. So it's right there. Now, how do we get the Metasound into the blueprint? So let me just kill this. Let me just delete all this so that we can start anew. And how do we do that? Okay, so we're looking back at our blueprint that we made, our blueprint actor for our fire and sparks particle system. Now, we need to add audio. How do we do this? We're going to go over here. We're going to add an audio component because, again, audio components are how we kind of keep track of our metasounds in the game thread. Metasounds happen on the audio thread, on the audio rendering thread. And in order to communicate back and forth from the game thread to the audio thread, you've got to have a reference. And that's why this audio component reference is so important. So we're going to call this MS Fire Morph. That's what we're going to call this. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it Fire Morph. Then over here, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to add that Metasound that we literally just created, MS Morph. Now, we have the Metasound right there, and we also want it to activate automatically, and it will. So that means our Metasound is going to play as soon as the blueprint is activated, which is, in this instance, is when the game starts. So, now, I'm not going to hear anything, though, because remember, in our Metasound, the play is not hooked up to anything. It's just playing the Metasound, and then we can trigger the fire and the sparks. How do we do that? Well, let's look over here. Now what we can do is, now that we have a reference to this Metasound, we can drag this over to the graph. This is a true blueprint graph, okay? A Metasound is not a blueprint graph. A Metasound is scheduled audio triggers, okay? That's what they are on the audio render thread. the blueprint is actually code and executable triggers that are happening. So what we're going to do here is we're going to come over here, and so when we go over our fire box, it's going to activate the fire particle system. It's going to deactivate sparks if it's active. And then over here, we're going to drag this off, and this is the important part. We're going to execute trigger parameter, okay? Now that we have this audio component reference, we can call this trigger parameter. What's the name we're going to use? Well, that's very important. Input fire. So what we're going to do, in name fire. So when I walk over this box, it is going to trigger the fire. Let's just check that out real quick. So we're over here. We are playing. And then let's go trigger the fire. Boom. Now, Sparks is not going to do anything yet. It's going to trigger the Niagara system, but it's not going to trigger the sound. So now we got to add that logic. So what we do there is, to make it easy and quick, we're just going to copy this over down to here. So now when we go over the overlap box for the spark, it's going to activate the spark system, it's going to deactivate fire, and we're going to execute the trigger parameter. Now what trigger parameter execute? We're going to execute sparks now. Remember, when we execute the sparks parameter, it's going to automatically crossfade to the spark sound, and it's going to de-crossfade. It's going to turn down the fire. So now when we look at this, we're going to have some actual fire. Bam. Now listen to the sound. Sparks. Now we've got a beautiful combination of sparks and fire. And if we jump up here and stop it, nothing's going to happen because we haven't hooked that logic up. Let's do that right now to round off the tutorial. We're going to come in here. We're not going to stop this. Now, I'm going to do some more future videos on these blueprint nodes, but one thing you can do is if you just pull off here and you type fade, you're going to get this fade out. What this is going to do is this is going to, instead of just stopping the Metasound, it's going to fade out. You're going to use this node a lot, especially for this kind of stuff. We're going to naturally fade it out over the course of 4 seconds. That's our fade out duration. And then we're going to deactivate and the spark and the fire, whichever is playing. Now, these two are not going to get delayed because this is going to be on a 4-second timer, but these are going to execute immediately. So you're going to deactivate the Niagara and the sound's going to fade out, and it's going to be beautiful because the Niagara system kind of dissipates when it fades out. So let's check it out. Here we go. We are on fire. Beautiful. I can feel the heat already emotionally. Sparks. Boom. Great. Let's go back to fire. Just make sure everything's totally studly, and then let's just jump on this and call it a day. Bam. Boom. Very natural. I mean, you gotta admit, this is pretty cool stuff for one little basic meta sound. Let's take it up one more notch. You know me, I like to take things up a notch. Let's throw in, allow spatialization. Let's throw in an attenuation setting to make this just to take it over the top. We're gonna create a new sound attenuation, and let's just call this fire morph. And then what this is going to do, this is so cool. If you look on our viewport, now we got this attenuation circle. That attenuation circle is going to manipulate the spatial sound of the fire. Now, you can't see this attenuation circle right now, so let's change that to attenuation, boom. Let's go to this attenuation circle, fire morph. Let's make the inner radius 150, so that's when you'll get full volume. And let's just go 1,000 Unreal units. And now, let's go here, play. Okay, so when we hit this, now check this out. Here it's spatializing, and check this out. Let's go a little further away. Getting quieter. Super quiet. Super quiet. Let's go back up to it. Boom. So that now we have attenuation on this thing. Makes it even more realistic. And spatialization, check this out. See how it's panning as you're walking around it? How simple was that? Literally so simple. And then we'll stop it, get up there, boom, done, and that's it. Now, Super cool, simple method. This is the power of Metasounds in Unreal 5. This is the power of Blueprint. If you want to become an expert at Metasounds, you got to become an expert at blueprinting. The Metasounds, again, it's like the car, and the blueprint is the driver, baby. You are the driver, so learn these blueprints. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Thanks again so much for checking out the channel. Please like and subscribe. My subscriber numbers are going up, and it's really helping the channel. And I've got a bunch of cool ideas for future videos. If you've got some ideas for videos, put them in the comment. I do take the comments very seriously, and I listen to you guys. And sometimes you inspire me to do certain things and make certain content that I otherwise wouldn't have thought about. So thanks again for checking out. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.